Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Commercial Bank, the most awarded bank in the country, I'd like to welcome you to the webinar, Sailing to International Markets. Period to conduct the webinar is perfect, just 2 days after the government budget. Where a lot of emphasis was on export business, it is the correct time to learn, clarify, and find answers to the questions one has regarding export business. To facilitate same, we have invited 4 eminent speakers in their respective fields to share their knowledge with us this evening. Therefore, in order to proceed, allow me to introduce the moderator this evening of the webinar. He is Mr. Lorian Somanathan, who leads the exports division of Commercial Bank, and prior to his present assignment, he was attached to imports division of the bank for many years. Before that, he served in the corporate banking section as well as the personal banking section, and Lorian counts for more than 30 years of banking behind him, out of which most was under trade finance. Incidentally, he is the re-elected president of the Trade Finance Association of Bankers of Sri Lanka. He is the best candidate to be the moderator. Lorian, over to you to navigate us through to international markets.
Thank you, Darsana. International trade continues to grow in importance as this segment is a key contributor to the overall performance of a country. The present economic constraints that we face gives us a thought in seeing whether we have managed our international trade properly. The state has now emphasized in growing our exports, tourism, and the worker remittances in boosting in the country's foreign exchange inflows. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It gives we have an eminent panel to discuss how to sail to international markets. The topics for discussion would be developing and marketing products for exports, strategies and initiatives to facilitate exports, selecting the best payment method, what Commercial Bank offers for exporters. During the Q&A, there will be 2 more gentlemen who will be joining our discussion to speak to us on the foreign exchange positions and the regulatory requirements. So participants, please feel free to post your questions on the chat box. We will take them at the Q&A. In moving forward, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is no stranger to the industry and to our nation. He holds many key positions, actively serving on councils, committees, and as a director on many boards. As an entrepreneur and exporter, he strongly believes in building a strong network ecosystems both locally and globally, in empowering and improving the lives of people so that we can make Sri Lanka the wonder of Asia. We are glad to have the chairman and chief executive of the Export Development Board to give us some insights in developing and marketing products for exports. Mr. Dimel, over to you. We would like to hear from you on this particular area.
Thank you, Orion. Good evening to all. I will start my presentation by listing out some of the priority considerations, opportunities, and challenges for exporters. Understanding markets and delivery, sustainable supply capacity, quality standards, regulatory compliance, competitive pricing, connectivity and logistics, free trade agreements, and trade barriers. So in that list of 7 priorities, I would like to start with understanding markets and delivery. Here we need to understand consumer demand, consumer behavior, our competition, then comparative advantages over our competition, pitching the product or service, branding, exceeding customer expectations, and maintaining goodwill and consumer loyalty. Now, these are again priorities where many exporters fail to understand markets and the market requirements and the delivery requirements. Next, I would like to talk about sustainable supply capacity. Fulfilling a buyer's required volume is very important. Regular and consistent supply, on-time delivery, and no excuses. This again is a challenge for our exporters, big and small. Then we come to quality standards. Transparency, traceability, certificates of origin, social and environmental compliance, and various certifications are very critical in reaching out to the value markets in the world. And if Sri Lanka has the world's best products, we might as well try the world's best markets. Unfortunately, many of our agricultural products, which we claim to be the world's best, and which are recognized as the world's best, are being sold to low-priced markets or low-value markets. And that has to do with some of the earlier considerations of price, quality, most importantly, quality, volume, and price. So again, in our markets today, they require various social and environmental compliance, especially in the value markets like Europe and the US, Australia, England. So social compliance, environmental compliance, and other certifications are becoming more and more important for the value markets and should not be overlooked. Then, of course, regulatory compliance. When we are exporting to certain markets, we have to follow the proper documentation, understand import-export controls in Sri Lanka as well as in the overseas destinations, the customs regulations and foreign exchange, and of course, banking. Competitive pricing. This is where we have to understand where we position our product. We must understand that we cannot sell everything to everybody. and we have to position ourselves in the right market. And we have to deliver value for money. And again, that has to be transparent, consistent, and reliable. Connectivity and logistics. We must consider the ease of logistical connectivity to markets, the freight cost, the travel cost for reliable and timely delivery. This is also a critical consideration. Then free trade agreements and trade barriers. We have free trade agreements, preferential trade agreements with various countries. There are certain countries that have economic sanctions, and we need to understand that before we start shipping to those markets or exporting to those markets. The import-export controls and quotas, customs tariffs and taxes, and of course, the political stability or instability of a country needs to be a consideration before we export. The Sri Lanka Export Development Board operates on 5 pillars as a promoter, a facilitator, a knowledge provider, monitor, and policy advisor. As a promoter and facilitator, we are Sri Lanka's state apex agency for export promotion, the public-private stakeholder ecosystem for exporters, because EDB operates with private-public advisory committees on products as well as markets. We work closely with the foreign missions, Sri Lankan foreign missions overseas, and the commercial officers there, which I think we will be discussing later today. And then we are networked with international trade facilitation agencies. So we facilitate trade fair participation and one-to-one and B2B meetings. We do brand building, supply chains and diversification of products and services. And we are a focal point for export development activities, including feasibility studies and project reports. As a knowledge provider, we are networked with multiple stakeholders, local and global. We warehouse market intelligence and keep ourselves updated as necessary, especially at times like this when markets are changing continuously. Then we keep an eye on trade regulations, export documentation and procedures, locally and globally. Product and service quality compliance and certification information. Then research and development of new markets and trends. Coordinate multiple stakeholders for export development activities, including other government agencies and private sector, even foreign agencies. Then exporter skills development, especially for startups, SMEs, and new exporters. We also have an export business advisory service. As the monitor and the policy advisor, EDB monitors international markets and trends, standards and compliance, export performance, multi-sector export functions, advisor to the government on export-related issues and policy, formulation of the national export development plans and strategy, coordinating the implementation of plans and strategy, and creating a conducive environment for exports and investment. Our office has 8 divisions: market development, trade information and facilitation, regional development, export agriculture, industrial products, export services, information and communication technology, and policy and strategic planning. We need to think out of the box in our exports, especially during this time when global markets are changing. We have to be more innovative. Our product basket is very traditional and our markets are traditional. We still depend on apparel, tea, rubber, and coconut, and of course, the US and European market for most of our apparel, which is half our export basket. So we need to diversify. Use of advanced technology, ICT, GIS, AI, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, all these are new technologies that we need to adapt. And of course, now post COVID, I think we have video conferencing capabilities like this webinar we are having, which we must make maximum use of because our bandwidth is fairly large with this type of meeting. B2B meetings, webinars, they even have trade fair participation nowadays on virtual platforms. Then online trade facilitation information, online market intelligence, and also use of e-commerce. These are all developing very rapidly and we need to keep an eye on them. The greatest opportunities in Sri Lanka lie in value-added agriculture, post-harvest technology, processing, packaging, certification, etc. And in product-wise, we have herbs, spices, superfoods, organic and single origin foods, which are in very high demand in the world market. And Sri Lanka has a good volume of a lot of stuff, especially like our cinnamon and black pepper, which there is an excellent market if we produce the right quality for that market. Then information technology, knowledge process outsourcing, business process management, software and app development. Then we have electrical, electronic and automotive component manufacturing, boat building and nautical tourism, infrastructure and services, and logistics. These are great opportunities going forward, of course, and also marine and offshore engineering and services, which go hand in hand with nautical tourism, etc. Finally, I would like to encourage people to keep an eye on the EDB website, which has a wide variety of information in Sinhala, Tamil, and English, and come to us because there are many things that are being updated regularly, and we are there to help you in any way we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dimel. Thanks for enlightening on whatever the current topics, the current areas that the EDB is concentrating in boosting its exports. Going through your presentation or your discussion, I would like to find out now, you spoke about certification for exports of products. So do we have bodies in Sri Lanka who do this? And if so, how far their certifications are internationally recognized?
Yes, we have internationally recognized certification bodies operating in Sri Lanka, like for organic agriculture, for organic certifications, ISO certifications, which are for environment, then even social compliance certifications. Our SLSI certifications also are fairly well recognized around the world. Countries like Europe and countries in Europe and the US require specific certifications, and most of them are available in Sri Lanka, or we can access certification bodies from overseas to come and do the certification, and many exporters are utilizing this.
So then there's another question that comes out, which says, how can EDB help in finding customers, like a database for any newcomer who intends starting on reaching out to export market?
Yeah, now, online there's many opportunities. We can, first of all, we have to identify a product that is available in abundance, and we can do, like I first talked about, the capacity for delivery. And unless we match our capacity to the market, we are going to fall in trouble. And what I recommend for a new exporter is for them to work with an existing exporter and be an indirect exporter to understand quality requirements, volume requirements, price requirements, because there are many exporters in Sri Lanka, well established, some over 100 years, who are struggling with supply. And then we have a lot of producers who are looking for markets. So I believe that if we can create platforms where the existing exporters can work closer with the producers, I think we have the right combination, because otherwise matching markets and suppliers is not easy. Therefore, we would like to encourage new exporters to work with existing exporters, established exporters, because there is a lot to learn and the market is large, because we don't have to compete with the guy that taught us, but we can always find new markets and be innovative and do new things. So it's all about working with others and in collaboration, which is very important. But I think, participation in trade fairs is the ideal way to find markets, because you can understand firsthand the requirements of a buyer. So participation in trade fairs, I suppose, is the number one way to find proper markets, because communicating online or so on is very difficult. And we must be careful, because matching the quality requirement of the buyer is so critical, because even Sri Lanka as a whole will lose its reputation as a good supplier when we fail to deliver. So that's my answer to that.
One more question, Mr. Demel. Now, since with coming up with all these import restriction, which has impacted to grow exports, is there some sort of assistance provided by EDB to face the challenge?
Yeah, now most of our exporters have been exempted from these import restrictions through the customs, because we have a program called import for re-export, temporary importation for export processing, they call it, the TEEP system. So we can, and of course, BOI factories, we can continue to import for re-export. And where there are some areas, sort of gray areas with import bans on certain products, then we have to get special permission, and that EDB facilitates for exporters and works with the import controllers and customs and so on to make sure that our exporters have the raw material they need for production. EDB is facilitating that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Demel. I'll come back to you on further questions during the Q&A, or in between we need to ask you, find out something. So thank you very much. Please be on and be with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Our next speaker is a gentleman who is well read in economics, who has undergone training in international trade in Geneva, Netherlands, Singapore, and many more countries. He has served as the Consul General in Pakistan, and as well as Sri Lankan missions in Frankfurt, Kuala Lumpur, and Tel Aviv. He is currently the Deputy Head of Trade Promotions at the Department of Commerce. We are happy to have Mr. Deva to enlighten us on the strategies and initiatives for facilitating exports. Mr. Deva, over to you.
So good evening, Chairman, Sri Lanka Export Development Board, Mr. Suresh Dimal, organizers of this webinar, trade finance division of the Commercial Bank, and distinguished participants. Good evening to you all. My presentation will focus on assistances provided to local exporters from our overseas commercial officers serving in foreign missions abroad. My presentation will have few slides on our representation across the world and importance of it, and a few slides on our trade prioritized destinations and our largest exports products to the world. And then we will go through a few slides on the detail of the assistance provided to local exporters from our overseas commercial officers serving in our missions across the world. So, yeah, I think this is a global map where we have shown the Sri Lanka's commercial representations abroad. Commercial officers are serving in Sri Lanka's missions across the world, and these destinations are decided based on the importance of our commercial interests and our commercial relations. So we have 33 officers serving in 27 countries and fairly well represented Sri Lanka's trade interest across the world. This is the map, global map. We have shown where our officers are serving, the interest to represent Sri Lanka's trade, commercial, investment, and tourism and other government prioritized agendas. These are the countries they are serving in, almost 33 missions and 27 countries. Some of the countries we have 3 officers, especially India, since it is a very larger country, and we have more importance for export as well as imports. So we have officers in New Delhi and Chennai and Mumbai. Similar to that, we have Switzerland. It's a multilateral station. All our trade policy matters are in need to be comply with international law and multilateral agreements that Sri Lanka has signed. So we have 2 officers, 1 senior officer and junior officer serving in Switzerland, representing at World Trade Organization in Geneva. And we have another 2 officers serving in United Kingdom, 1 senior officer and 1 junior officer, due to the second largest export destination of Sri Lanka. And there are other 2 officers serving in US. This is also #1 largest destination for Sri Lanka for our exports. And recently we have started a new mission in Bangladesh as well, due to our importance of recent trade development. These are the places our commercial officers are serving in. So any exporter, if he has a competitive product, when you say a competitive product, a product must be competitive in price as well as the quality, and it can reach these destination with the assistance of our officers, information and facilitation. They can find the probable importer and reaching their target exports in these markets very easily. And they are not only covering these markets, they are covering the other countries also. They are covering their export promotions. And these are the our largest export destinations. 25% of our exports are exported to United States. The next second largest export destination is UK, 7.6%. Then India. Recently, India has become much more advanced due to the 8 million pieces Sri Lanka has got duty-free access to Indian market. Due to that, India has got well advanced in their export destination numbers, and then Germany, Italy, and it goes on. So our largest prime export destination is US. This is our largest exportable products. So 40% of our exports are on garments, 25% stitched garments, other articles of apparel, 15%, and then coffee, tea, meats, spices, and then 8.8% rubbers. This is just to show some indication of our export trend and our export destinations, and across the globe, how Sri Lanka is represented. Now we will come to another information, how our exporters, local exporters are assisted, how they can get the assistance to export their product to these countries. When you say export, it has to cross the border. It has to, either it's product or services, it has to cross a border from one country to other countries. So when they cross the border, it has to go through, each country has its own regulations. So that can be highly dynamic. So some countries, every 3 months, they changes the regulatory information. Some countries 6 months, some countries 1 year. So the exporter needs to get a exact information on what are the regulations govern in crossing the border of his product or services. Especially there are information on tariff, customs duties, highly dynamic. Some countries every 3 months they go through their import data and they adjust their customs duty according to their foreign exchange demand and supply. Every country today faces foreign exchange issues. So some countries have already made a decision. Every 3 months they go through their export import data and they adjust their customs duty in order to have some control over their inflow and outflow of foreign exchange. So custom duty is the prime importance to know, to be known by an exporter. So we can get the access through various sources, either database, online, but the exact information may not be known from them because they are highly dynamic. Every 3 months, 6 months, they change it on and off. So they need to write, if they want to find out the exact customs duty, they need to write to our officers. Either they can write to the Department of Commerce or directly to our officers and find out for the exact customs duty for the exact HS number of their product. And not only customs duties, sometimes they have a preferential duty. Customs duty may be 60%, preferential duty can be 30%. So exporter, we have come across many of our Sri Lankan exporters, they are not aware of the preferential duty. So they loses its advantages in their market and their product become less competitive. So if they want to find it, then there are 2-3 agreements, we may have it in the same destination. So we need to analyze which agreement suited to particular product and which has more advanced, more competitive duties, and then regulations govern to get a preferential duty. Those information can only be received from a commercial officer stationed there because he has access to this information and he can immediately inform the exporter, this is the duty, this is the preferential duty, you can use this duty, this is the laws governing the governing to receive the preferential duties, and what is the component of rules of origin. Those informations are very essential if we need to get a very competitive price for this product in a distinct market. Similar way, not only there are regulations on customs duty, there are regulations on trade measures. Each country, they safeguard their country from various other trade issues. So they introduce on and off on various trade measures to safeguard their countries. So these informations and additional requirements on certification, quality standards, etc., can be received from our officers. And market information, if we are exporting a particular product, we can find out what kind of similar products are exported to these countries from various other destinations. What are the total value of these products in that countries? And what is the market trend, the consumer trends, whether they prefer more luxury item or they go for a high-end markets or low-end markets or packaging informations and technical information. And there are some countries when an exporter starts exporting to that particular country, the local manufacturers of the similar product in that country may influence the political authorities or regulators to introduce some trade barriers to stop importing from other countries. So they are illegitimate. According to the international law, they are illegitimate. So there are the local exporter needs to overcome that. So they need to inform to the particular trade officer, commercial officer serving in this country, the assistance of their importer, and the commercial officer has to engage with the particular government and the institutions and particular officials to remove it, and according to the international law and the practices. And if the particular country is not able to remove it, we'll have to take it to the World Trade Organization under dispute settlement board or mechanism, and we need to deal it. So similar way, there are other trade, tourism, investment, promotional assistance also provided by these officers. We will see them in detail in the next slides. So we have already mentioned customs duties, details information on customs duties, preferential tariffs, rules governing customs duties, rules of origin, etc. The exact information of a particular product can be received from these officers. We need to send them the particular HS, harmonized system code of the particular product, and these officers are able to get it from the particular agencies in the country, and they can convey to our exporter. Then exporter can fix a exact price. Many of our exporters, they have not fixing a particular attractive prices to the importer. Many importers have said that larger portion of profit goes to the importer. Our exporters have a small profit, and then they give a price. If they know these customs duties, preferential tariff, and rules of details, they can find out what is the market price, how much they can fix their own product at the FOB value or CIF value. Then we can have our exporters can get a larger profit of particular items to themselves. Even tea only, they say recently there was a research done by German marketing institution. They say 16% of the profit only retained by Sri Lanka. Next, about 75% of the profit in tea is to the destined market retail sellers. They are gaining the 75% of the tea profit. Similarly, spices also. We export raw spices. Some of the countries where they don't have a single spice plants, but they grind it and they send spice powders, curry powders back to Sri Lanka. I have met a largest spice curry powder manufacturer in one country. He said every month he imports fresh spice from Sri Lanka, 2 containers of fresh spices from Sri Lanka, and send back 4 to 8 spice container, the curry powders back to Sri Lanka. And he told me all the 5-star hotels, 4-star hotels, and 3-star hotels in Sri Lanka are using these spice powders. And all the Sri Lankan supermarkets are having this spice powder. And this powder is 10 times higher than the local spice prices with the marketing, packaging, and all. So, but our spice exporters still, after nearly more than 75 years, we are still exporting the raw spices back to all over the world, and some leading countries, they are grinding it and they are making a packaging properly, and they are sending back to us as a curry powders at a 10 times, 15 times higher than the raw fresh spice prices. So we have not properly innovated the product to market it. Similarly, there are other para tariff and other duties and charges also decides about the price, particular products in prices. So the exporter has to know these things, then only he can fix a price for a buyer. And there are certain countries, they have restrictions on market access with the quantity restrictions. Only 4,000 metric tons can be exported for a year, and we need to get import permits for those informations also. We can get it, and if there is a unnecessary issues, measures are in place for extents, if there is a unwanted import permits, then they'll have to inform to the commercial officer. They will deal with the host countries, particular institutions and particular officers who decides about it, and they will try their best to resolve it for the welfare of for the good of our exporters. Similarly, there are quality standards. Every country, they upgrade their standards every year. Some are going beyond the international standards. Some countries, their standards are much more higher than the international standards. So we cannot go only by the international standards. Now, for instance, Germany and all, their majority of their standards are much higher than the international standards. So Sri Lanka, we cannot export pineapples to Germany. We cannot export curry leaves to Germany because their standards are much more higher than the international standards. So those information can only be received from the commercial officers serving these missions. And other technical regulations, when product is manufactured and sold for overseas markets, they need a explicit detail of the technical component of this product, where they are nutritional and other contents should be invisibly in their packaging with the language in use in that particular country, and the sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Every country has measures to protect their human, animal, and plant health and life. So they impose time to time different measures, regulations. When a product or service is imported to a particular country, they have to comply these measures. So detail of these measures can only be received from the exact details of the. There are a lot of materials, magazines, and informations and database, but the exact details can only be received from the officers serving in these missions. And if they receive the exact information only, they can very well plan to export to the destined market accordingly. And labeling informations and some packaging. Some countries, they are now discouraging packaging in plastics items. They want bio-free packaging requirements and all. Every year they are upgrading their quality standards in packaging. So that has to be in advance. The importer may also inform particular information, but apart from it, rather than importer is mainly focusing on business. But there are other requirements. The commercial officers their entire duty is to network and get all the information to the competitive products of Sri Lanka. We have a very few competitive products in our hands, garments, textiles, and spices, tea, and also every mission has a research database done on these items, and we upgrade each and every time when there is a new regulations, new information. We upgrade our database and research service done on these products. And whenever an exporter requests this, we go through it and we inquire the latest information and we add it and we send it to the exporter. So these are information available, freely available for the exporters. And what we come across recently is that many of our exporters are not aware of it, especially for the duty concessions, tariff duties, and other trade measures. They are not. Recently, one company, herbal cosmetic companies, they were exporting to one country and fully paying all the duties, whereas we have done an agreement, bilateral agreement, where 50% is preferential duties. So when I asked them why you have not utilized it, they were not aware of it. And last many years, they have been paying unwanted tax to the particular country. So most of these informations are not well aware because their communication with the trade officers are very much lacking. And there are some countries, they require mandatory certifications to comply. So then some countries, they, in order to discourage the exports to their country, they may request unwanted certifications also against the international law, and also that also need to be informed to the particular officer serving in this country, and that officer will take up with a particular agency which has a responsibility on imposing these certificates, and they will deal it accordingly. And present, if we are exporting coconut to one destination, we can find out presently what are the other countries exporting coconuts to the particular countries and what are their values. And from the values, we can tentatively think what is the target price of exports from that country, and distributional channels, what kind of distributional their competitors are using it, and the business models, they are, whether their final price is fixed by an exporter or the exporter is giving a margin, what kind of margin, and the new trends in distribution and all. Those information can be received from these offices. And competitive exporters country details, how they are able to export at this price, and what is there, do they have an advanced manufacturing facility, or they are using information technology to reduce their cost, or they are receiving any subsidy from the government. So if they are receiving subsidy, then we can also go for a countervailing measures, and sometimes exporter, when our exporters, when they are exporting to country, the host country will blame us that he is dumping the product in the export destination. So then the government may impose temporary restriction on the exports. So those things, if we address to the commercial officers, he will inquire about, investigate, and he will address to the particular host government accordingly. And there are other market survey information as well. Then apart from it, nowadays we come across a lot of bogus importers. They online, many exporters, they are going through internet and find an address, and they send exports to particular addresses. When the exports reach the destination port, then they say, oh, we have come across foreign exchange issues. Our government is not allowing the foreign exchange to be paid for unnecessary things, only essential items. Your item is not essential item, so we are unable to pay for it. We will negotiate for a credit. So when they start negotiating credit, after the credit, when you check it, there was no company like that. There won't be a company with that name. It's bogus. Then they will clear the goods and they will get punished. So before exporting to a particular company, they can get a credibility and confidential reports right into the particular mission, whether I have got a order for this much amount, whether I want to receive a report, credibility report, whether they are reliable or whether they are existing. So then that can also, they will contact, the commercial officers will contact the trade chambers in that particular country or other agencies or government departments or Ministry of Trade, and they will get their confidential reports. And some reliable companies, exporters, they don't want to do a business with unreliable money laundering companies, some companies utilizing some illegitimate means of resources and all. So that can also be received from our offices, whether they can immediately communicate to that this company has requested us our products. So represent our company in the country. We want a report to, we want a detailed report of this company's confidentially and credibility and image of this company, because our company has 100 years or 50 years standing, and we don't want to spoil our name with dealing with other companies. And the payment settlement method, some companies, they will say, you give us a LC, we are ready to pay you LC or TT. Once the goods reaches your destination and all, they say, no, we'll negotiate and we have that issue, this issue. Then, so certain countries are not used for certain kind of payment methods. So we ask them, go for a highly collateral payment methods or highly secured LC. And there are, when you trade with companies, you come across a lot of trade complaints. They may not, they may default your payment. They say your products qualities are not up to the mark, and you have said first consignment very good, second consignment they are infected with germs, and also I may not be able to pay, and you have to. So these trade complaints, if you are going to address it in a litigation, it will cost much more higher than your export value. So you can write to these officers, and they will make use of their government channels and diplomatic instruments, and they may try their best to resolve it as amicably as possible. And in the same way, trade inquiries, there are many companies, they are asking for Sri Lankan products and all. They may not know the Sri Lankan exporters. They will send a requirement to our missions. So our missions will channel them to particular exporters association or Sri Lanka Export Development Board. There are some, when we start very competitive exports, the particular products, local manufacturers in the host country, they will try their best to block, disturb the exports. So they will persuade the government through pursuing their political influence and bribing the officials and all, to illegitimate barriers to the exports. So that the exporter has to inform to the particular officer, there's an issue and I cannot export this one. They have a high value for my product and high taxation and all. So the officers will go through the case and they will see whether they are illegitimate according to the international trade law, and they will address in a very diplomatic manner to the particular agencies, and try. Our prime objective is to resolve it in an amicable manner, because our bilateral relations is much more important than the disputes we come across. Apart from it, there are also other organizing business matchmaking. If we are manufacturing a particular product, we can ask, I want to sell this product, please organize me 10 buyers, possible buyers, whether I can make a presentation to them, and I can talk to them, and all our officers will make organizing as a through Zoom or webinar, or you can ask them to make all the officers all the commercial officers need to make a presentation about a company and a product, whether they can find each company probable buyers. Then they will make some arrangements, contacts with their buyers, and they will organize your matchmaking meeting. And this has been recently, we have been doing it for many countries, and there are a lot of successful stories as well. And organizing other Sri Lanka trade, tourism, investment, other promotional events overseas. So our mission will organize these investment forums, business forums and all. If you are interested, you can participate either online, or you can physically or virtually. And if inward buying missions, if there is a SPICE inward buying mission or multi-sector buying mission, they will organize it. Your company can also enroll it to talk to the participants of the buying missions, and you can also market your exports products. And visiting, if you are interested in going as a trade delegation to particular country, also they will organize everything, your visas and your meetings and your visits to the particular factories and talking. You need to communicate to them well in advance, so that some countries, they need 5, 6, 7 months of time to organize things, because they have already pre-planned programs. So we need to well in advance inform them that we have a plan to visit these countries and these are the dates, and we need to meet these kind of sectors of people, and we need to talk to them. We need to talk to the regulatory authority. We need to talk to the buyers, and we need to visit their factories. And so these things can be also, and they will also participate. Now most of the exporters, they are unable to travel to foreign countries because of their cost and cost of traveling and various other things. So you can send your sample products, and they will take a common booth and display your products. And if there's inquiry, they will get their business cards and they will share it with you. And then later you can communicate with them and start your business discussions. So these are our addresses. Then you can send any kind of an inquiry to For Trade, or which country you want to send For Trade. This is the email to send to them, and we will channel it to the particular country concerned, particular officers, and we will get back to you with the particular information as soon as possible. And these are the telephoning. Or you can send it to the any foreign missions, head of missions, ambassadors, high commissioners, or the foreign ministry, whatever is convenient to you. Then your inquiry will be communicated with the particular officer, and we would be reaching you with the particular information as soon as possible. Thank you very much for your patience hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Nyanadeva, for an excellent presentation. There are a few questions which we want to say now. You listed the entire offices that are there. So we couldn't find two places where our clients want to find out whether you have an office in Dubai and Maldives.
Yeah, we have an office in Dubai. That's the UAE. I think we have mentioned it. UAE is to Dubai. Yeah.
Okay. So how about
And
Maldives?
Maldives mostly it's a market for tourism, no? Maldives, since it is close by, we don't have an office as of now.
Okay, right. So further now, if a client he needs to know about the markets, international markets, and the regulatory requirements of those markets, how will the Department of Commerce help him to find or get those information?
The exporter has to find out the exact HS number. There are 6 digits, 8 digits number, exact number of the particular product. And he has to send, now for instance, if I want to export fresh coconut to Pakistan, I need to get a HS number of fresh coconut, which can be decided by your buyer or here. The buyer will find out the HS number of the particular host country. So that you have to find out the HS number of Sri Lankan, it's 6 digits number. Then you have to send to us. Then we will, you can send it to the Department of Commerce, and the exporter has to mention that I'm interested in Pakistan market or Middle East market. So then we will forward to the particular officer. Officer will go through it, and because officer's work is to network with the people and institutions to get as much as information relevant to Sri Lanka. So we have a basket of exports items. So we focus on those items. We don't export rockets and jets and all. No, so we export our traditional, mostly our garments and traditional exports. So we go through, we specialize on this information, and we get access to this information. And as and when we receive this inquiry, we go through some of our database and we ascertain it whether that is still available, still existing in a particular country, and we share the information to them.
So now there's one more question now. EDB, I know EDB also facilitates this. Now, does the Department of Commerce helps out the exporter to find a buyer for his product?
Yeah, now the important issue is that a particular product should be competitive. Most of our exporters, our cost of production is very higher than other countries in the region. So price-wise, our product should be very competitive, and quality-wise also very competitive. And we need to have a consistent supply to the market. Consistent. These are 3 important things. And if we have these 3 things, and it's easy to find a buyer and if we send this information, your company profile and product details and the cost issues and all, then we can the particular officer will circulate it among the importers of a particular product. Every mission, they have a database of importers in each spices and all, and they will time to time they will update it. So they will circulate it, and every interested people will contact the mission. I am interested in this product. Please make arrangements to contact them, and then we'll send the same information to the particular exporter. Then they'll have to talk to them directly, and they can finalize their exports. That's the normal mode of function. Yeah.
One more question. Just now you spoke about the standing of a buyer. So the standing of a buyer, maybe the reputation and his credibility, your officers do confirm that. So is it happening in that way, or how does it work out?
Now, when they come across problem, only they come to us. Now, recently, 65,000 US dollar worth of spices they have exported to Pakistan, and then the buyer started negotiating for a credit term. So then there are suspicion. They got some suspicion, and they got this. Then they informed to the particular commercial officer. Then when he checked them, there is no such company, no such this and all. Then cargo has by the time reached the destination port. So now then the officer has to be involved in resending the cargo back to Sri Lanka as a frustrated cargo. The exporter has to incur another 5,000, 6,000 US dollar to resend the cargo back. That also after much struggle. So similar way, in recently there was in Egypt also one exporter exported to one consignment of cargo, and then the exporter had dealings with the customs in Egypt, and they immediately put for auction, and the exporter has cleared by paying a small amount to the customs and an auction and clear. Then they informed the Egypt government is not willing to pay for their foreign exchange for the unnecessary things. So there are issues. So in order to avoid these things, prior to send your goods, you need to send the information to the particular officer. You don't need to mention about the transactions or anything, but you say whether the company is credible, reliable, whether we need to get we got some orders, whether we need to find out whether they are reliability in the business. So that the officer will immediately contact the relevant chamber in the place and the relevant ministry organizations. Then we can talk to some people who's known to the particular officers and all. Then they will come across some information and they will communicate with the exporter.
You spoke about the tariff structure of each nation, each country. Is this information freely available for an exporter to access?
Now, some countries it's freely available, some countries it's not freely not available. Some countries all information is available. So latest information you may not get it, but some businessmen, based on the normal information, they act on it. But if they get a exact information, they can target their export prices and prepare the export accordingly and all. They can do it. So we want the exporters to function with the accurate information. So that can only be received from the officers, because he has its own networking in these agencies in the host country, and available resources and all. So they will go through it and they'll check it and all. Then sometimes there are regulations and practice will be different in particular countries, especially for developing countries. The regulations may not be there, practice will be different, or regulations will be there, practice will be different. So the actual information can be received from the officers. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Mr. Nyanadeva. I think there are a lot more questions lined up for you. We will take it on to the Q&A. So in the interest of time, I would move on to the next speaker. He is our head of imports. He is Mr. Prasad Fernando. He counts over 30 years of banking. He is the current chairperson of the banking committee of the International Chamber of Commerce, Sri Lanka. He is here to brief us with regard to selecting the best payment method. Prasad, over to you. Prasad, I think you are muted.
Yes, Rory. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, participants who are joining today to this webinar, an eminent panel of speakers and panel members. Let's move into the topic, selecting the best payment method when sailing to international markets. During this presentation, I will mainly focus the impact of selecting the best payment method as an exporter. Yes, international trade is more complicated, as we discussed earlier, and it entails greater risk than those encountered in domestic market. It's not like something buying from a local market. The importers and exporters who may be unknown to each other, may be separated by thousands of miles. It may be not possible to eliminate all risks, but what we can do, we could manage it. In selecting a payment method, an importer should be mindful of financial standing of the buyer. So whether the buyer is in a position to pay when agreed within agreed timelines. What is the level of assurance in securing payment? Any third-party guarantees available like an LC? and receiving payment in the currency as expected. What would be the impact on exchange rate, whether it is appreciating or depreciating against the local currency? What would be the short-term and long-term impact? Because in some transactions, exporter may not receive the immediate payment. What are the regulations in the buyer's country, import and exchange control regulations, economic policies, political stability? It's also a concern. There can be trade sanctions imposed by US, UN, or European Union against certain countries. Do you have an understanding of current geopolitical situation? All these are requirements. There can be various quality standards to be maintained, as we, as our panel of speakers discussed before, depend on the commodity you trade with. Is there a requirement of submitting independent survey, health, and inspection certificates? Better verify if any import restrictions are in force for certain payment terms. Currently, there are many import restrictions in Sri Lanka. So, as an exporter, exporter needs to be vigilant about local regulations of the buyer's country before effecting shipment, even before signing a contract. Finding the best payment method, we need to understand movement of commodity prices in global market. For certain commodities, there are many global suppliers. In some cases, few countries will have a controlling power on the price. Example, Sri Lanka being one of the largest cinnamon exporting countries, and its unique quality, our exporters may demand for a higher price. Some items are seasonal commodities. Garments are manufactured and exported depending on the winter, summer seasons. Exporters should be mindful of such seasonal impact as well. Sri Lanka being an island, we need to export our goods either sea or air. Price will be determined based on the Incoterms. So the exporter should consider what are his obligations under a respective Incoterm before entering to a contract or agreeing the price in supplying the goods. In selecting the best payment method, knowing your buyer's standing is so important. Banks assist by calling status reports of your counterparties in a trade transaction. As an exporter, you may prefer to receive the payment as early as possible, even before shipment. Exporter looks for convenience and a shorter payment cycle. Exporter will concentrate to receive payment by avoiding many banks, submission of various documents, and following strict procedures. When there are many banks involved in a payment method, then parties have to incur heavy charges claimed by each and every bank for the service provided by them. The most accepted method by both the exporter and the importer is the letter of credit. It is mainly due to a third-party assurance given by importer's bank. It is almost like a payment guarantee given by the importer's bank to an exporter. Exporter claims to receive payment in preferred currency, which has a higher return. And demand in US dollars. Exporter should utilize in the financial sector, rather accepting irregular way of transferring foreign exchange. Best way of receiving pay, exporter can dictate terms if they have a monopoly in the market for their products, and value-added products. If the exporter can deliver value-added products, those are more attractive in the global market. Now, engagement of small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, in international market is vital for the survival of any global economy. They face two main challenges in financing trade activities. First, both exporters and importers are exposed to significant counterpart risk. That means buyer-sellers risk, in particular when exploring new markets and dealing with new customers and suppliers. So it is especially challenging for SMEs that have limited capacities and resources to engage in a sound due diligence process. Secondly, SMEs are often face difficulties in finding working capital. In a trade transaction, both parties, however, have different preferences in making the payment. The exporting SME would prefer payment before shipment, or ideally even earlier, to buy raw materials for the production of the goods or services. The importer, on the other hand, prefers to hold back payment until the proper delivery of ordered goods and services. Finally, they have to evolve a method of settlement to their satisfaction. Now, there are 5 methods of payment in international trade. For exporters' point of view, advance payment method gives the maximum security of receiving payment, and open account gives the least security to an exporter. Under advance payment, after accepting a sales contract exchange between parties, payment is made by the buyer to the supplier. And once shipment is made, supplier will dispatch shipping documents directly to the buyer in facilitating clearance of goods shipped. And it is very simplified and straight-through method and gives much convenience. Exporter can manage their cash flows issues and avoid seeking banking facilities for working capital requirements in procuring or manufacturing required goods. So there won't be any buyer's credit risk, since payment is made upfront. However, there can be restriction in certain countries by limiting the maximum amount could be remitted as an advance payment. Next is document credit. Document credit, which means LC. LC gives a bank undertaking to the supplier that payment will be made at site or under usance terms on presentation of documents as per terms and conditions of the LC. Since payment is guaranteed by a bank in the importer's country, standing of such bank is so vital in receiving payment by the exporter. Exporter should make every endeavor to present shipping documents to meet the LC terms and conditions. Export LC is very useful and to request bank finances for pre-shipment and post-shipment purposes. Exporter may utilize it to open a second LC, where we call it back-to-back LC. Second LC is issued on the strength of export LC already received. In case the exporter does not have sufficient bank limits for credit facilities, then better go for a transferable LC, which gives the capacity to transfer the incoming export LC partially or entirely to one or many suppliers to purchase required goods from the domestic market. If the exporter has a doubt of the financial standing of LC issuing bank or their country situation, so he could negate country risk by demanding for a confirmed LC, which gives an additional guarantee for payment by a prime global bank acceptable to the exporter. The exporter may claim from the confirming bank in case of a default scenario of the issuing bank due to various reasons. So many benefits to either party related to LC, but LC is more beneficial to an exporter in many ways. Next, we'll discuss about collection documents. Collection documents are the next best option in selecting the best payment method as an exporter. DP and DA are two main types of collection documents. A DP bill with a side draft and deliver instructions to release against payment is more beneficial than a DA bill presented with a tenor draft, along with delivery instructions to release against acceptance. If a bank receives a collection DP bill, then documents could be released by the importer's bank only after receiving payment from the importer. In contrast, once presented the DA bill to the buyer's bank, the buyer's bank make a presentation to the importer and then release documents after obtaining acceptance on the draft or the bill of exchange. Thereby, the buyer agrees to pay at maturity to the exporter. However, there won't be a bank obligation to effect payment for DP or DA bill like in an LC. So payment could be made on account. A bill process is not that critical like the LC. However, under collection terms, banks follow the payment and delivery terms given in the collection order. Banks are not liable to pay immediately unless the importer collects documents against payment or confirm acceptance and provide necessary funds to settle a DA bill at maturity. In case the importer fails to collect documents, then exporter needs to find another buyer to clear the said shipment. And in most cases, such a buyer will demand to bring down the price. Bank financing is not possible purely based on the instrument, but could be sought depend on the standing of the buyer, history of previous transaction, and settlement patterns. Other payment methods are open account and consignment basis. Open account and consignment basis payment methods have similar processes. And only difference is that the ownership of goods remain with the supplier until goods are sold under consignment basis. Exporter loses control of the goods and relies solely on the credit standing and business integrity of the importer to make payment at a specified date in future. Open account method offers the least security to the exporter, as he needs to trust the importer for payment after sending goods with the related shipping document. So exporter loses the control of open account method. Open account is consequently the highest risk option for an exporter. Because of intense competition in export markets, foreign buyers often press exporters for open account terms. Since the extension of credit by the seller to the buyer is more common abroad, therefore, exporters who are reluctant to extend credit may lose a sale to their competitors. However, the exporter can offer competitive open account terms while substantially mitigating the risk of non-payment by using suitable trade finance techniques such as export credit insurance. Open account terms may help win customers in competitive markets and can be used with a trade finance tool such as factoring, which is an account receivable financing provided by a third party, like a financial institute, at a discount that would mitigate the risk of non-payment. As global economies become more integrated, it has become easier for exporters and importers themselves to access dependable information about foreign trade partners, and they are less willing to pay for the risk protection afforded by traditional methods such as LC, DP, DA. This has led to a preference for open accounts, and there is a huge potential market in open account transaction. Finally, I would say it is difficult it is difficult to identify a particular payment method to a specific trade deal, considering their advantages and disadvantages. Selection of a payment method depends on many factors, as we discussed today during this session. What we should understand is we are unable to eliminate risk, but we should be able to identify risk, measure it, and finally select a most suitable payment method to manage and mitigate the risk in succeeding a trade deal. No risk, no reward. Banks, especially commercial bank, can assist customers in numerous ways to mitigate this risk and select the best payment method and overcome the challenges faced in the international market. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasad. In summarizing your understanding is that summarizing your presentation, if an exporter needs to secure his payment using the terms LC or a DP or a collection or DA, he can route his documents and obtain payments securely. But if an exporter deals on open account, he will have to totally rely on the importers or the buyer's capacity in honoring his payment. So, right. So there's a question which had been posted. I'm an exporter. I do have a website. I sell my products through the website, which is more simplified method for a retailer or a corporate selling his product through his website. In this instance, how does the bank facilitate in collecting the monies for these exporters? Prasad, if you can give your views on this. Prasad, are you there?
Yes, sorry, Aryan. I lost connection. Yes, payment gateway is one of the popular methods used by many retail and corporate sellers who do their sales online through websites. If you have a registered business, that you can have the payment gateway facility with any bank. Most banks that they provide this payment gateway option to facilitate this kind of trade activity. You need to register with a bank. There are few criteria that you need to fulfill before onboarding. Once you get registered, that you can receive payments online for your goods or services exported. That banks will facilitate that. This is more attractive for retail businesses, as there are daily limits for any card payments. Payments can be reached in any major currency, and you can collect the funds to your foreign currency account maintained with the bank. This gives the capacity to open a foreign currency account as well while doing transactions, exports through a website using these online channels.
Okay, thanks, Prasad. So there'll be a few more questions. I'll leave it for the Q&A. So I would go to the next speaker. Our next speaker currently heads our SME and banking unit. He has over 30 years of banking experience. He has a passionate interest in assisting entrepreneurs to progress from micro levels to SMEs and thereafter large corporates. Mr. Mohan Fernando will explain to us how Commercial Bank is geared to support the exporters' SMEs in their journey to success. Mohan, over to you, Mohan.
Thank you, Laurie. All the invited panelists and all the SMEs and the exporters who are joining this webinar. I wish all of you a very good evening. Ellarokum Malay Vandanangal and Ubasamata Subasandavak. I'll be failing in my duties if I don't take little time to recognize this most important business community, the SMEs and the exporters. අපි ඉතිහාසයට ගියොත් එහෙමත් නැත්නම් අපේ ආනයන අපනයන වෙළඳාම ගැන කතා කරොත් ඇත්තටම ඒ අන්තර්ජාතික වෙළඳාම මේ අපේ රටේ පටන් ගන්නේ ක්‍රිස්තු පූර්ව වර්ෂවලටත් එහායි. අපිට ඉතිහාසයේම අපිට සාක්ෂි දරනවා අපේ මේ කුඩා රට අන්තර්ජාතික වෙළඳාමේ ඉහළම ස්ථානයක එදා පටන් සිටිය බවට අපි කවුරුත් දන්නවා මේ සේදමාවත. මේ සේදමාවතේ ඉතාමත්ම වැදගත් ස්ථානයක තමයි අපේ රටේ පිහිටීම තියෙන්නේ. භූගෝලීය වශයෙන් ගත්තත් සමුද්‍රීය වශයෙන් ගත්තත් අපේ රට ඉතාමත් වාසනාවන්තයි. ඒ මොකද අපිට අන්තර්ජාතික වෙළඳාමේ ඉහළින්ම ඉන්න පුළුවන් ස්ථානයක අපි අපේ රට පිහිටලා තියෙන්නේ. අපි එදා ඉතාමත්ම ඉහළ ස්ථානයක අන්තර්ජාතික වෙළඳාමේ හිටියා. ඒකට ඉතිහාසය සාක්ෂි දරනවා. ඒවා ජනප්‍රවාද නෙමෙයි. ඉතිහාසයේ විසින්ම අපිට ඔප්පු කරලා දීලා තියෙනවා. අපි අන්තර්ජාතික වෙළඳාමේ ඉතාමත් ඉහළ ස්ථානයක සිටි බව. ඈත අතීතයට ගියාම අලියතුන් පවා අපි මේ කුඩා රටෙන් අනිකුත් රටවල් වලට අපනයනය කරලා තියෙනවා. ඇද්දල ඊට පස්සේ අපගේ කෘෂි භෝග ඊටත් කලින් මුතු මැණික් ඊට පස්සේ කෘෂි භෝග දැන් මේ විදියට අපි ඉදිරියට ඇවිල්ලා මේ වෙනකොට ඇඟලුම් ඒ වගේම කුළුබඩු විසිතුරු මසුන් ආහාර පාන මේ වගේ අංග රාශියක් අපගේ අපනයන වෙළඳාමට එකතු වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒකයි මේ අපනයන වෙළඳාමේ තියෙන විශේෂත්වය. අද අපනයන කරුවන් වන ඔබට ලොකු කාර්යභාරයක් තියෙනවා. අද අපි ඉන්නේ ඉතාමත්ම අභියෝග රාශියකට මුහුණ දෙන ආර්ථික සමාජීය වශයෙන් අන්තර්ජාතික වශයෙන් අපි අභියෝග රාශියකට මුහුණ දීලා තියෙනවා. අපිට මේ තත්ත්වයෙන් ගොඩ එන්න අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ඔබගේ සහයෝගය අවශ්‍යයි. ඒ ඔබගේ ප්‍රයත්නයේදී ඔබ සමග අත්වැල් බැඳගෙන ඉදිරියට යන්න කමර්ෂියල් බැංකුව වශයෙන් අපි නිතැතින්ම කැප වී සිටිනවා. අන්තර්ජාතික වෙළඳාමේ නියුතු මේ විශේෂිත වූ කුඩා හා මධ්‍ය පරිමාණ ව්‍යවසායකින් සහ අනිකුත් ව්‍යවසායකින් ඉතාමත්ම වැදගත්. මොකද ඔවුන්ට තියෙනවා ලොකු ධෛර්යයක්, ඔවුන්ට තියෙනවා ලොකු කැපවීමක් ඔවුන්ගේ ඒ ව්‍යාපාර කටයුතු ඉදිරියට කරගෙන යාමට. ඒ වගකීමේදී කමර්ෂියල් බැංකුව වශයෙන් බැංකුකරුවන් වශයෙන් අපට තියෙන වගවීමක්. ඒ වගවීම ඔබගේ වගකීමට අපගේ වගවීම කොතෙක්ද කියලා පෙන්වන්න තමයි මෙවැනි වැඩමුළුවක් අපි මේ පැවැත්වුවේ. ඉතින් මෙතනදී අපනයන කරුවන් වශයෙන් ඔබ මුහුණ දෙන අභියෝග අතරින් මූල්‍ය පහසුකම් ලබා ගැනීම එක අභියෝගයක්. ඒ වගේම ඔබට තවත් අභියෝගයක් තියෙනවා. වෙළඳපොළ තොරතුරු, වෙළඳපොළ අලුත් ගනුදෙනු කරුවන් පිළිබඳ තොරතුරු ලබා ගැනීමට. ඒ සඳහා විශේෂිත වූ වැඩපිළිවෙලක් කමර්ෂියල් බැංකුව තුළ තියෙනවා. නව වෙළඳපොළ තොරතුරු සහ ගනුදෙනු කරුවන් පිළිබඳ තොරතුරු ලබා ගැනීමේදී කමර්ෂියල් බැංකුව හුදකලා ආයතනයක් විදියට නෙමෙයි කටයුතු කරන්නේ. අපි හා බැඳුණු කමර්ෂල් බැංකුව හා එක්වුණු මූලාශ්‍ර ආයතන මූලාශ්‍ර පුද්ගලින් රාශියක් ඉන්නවා. දැන් අද අපි එවැනි ආයතන දෙකක් සම්බන්ධ කරගත්තා. ඒ සඳහා අපිට මූලාශ්‍ර පුද්ගලයන් දෙදෙනෙක් අති විශිෂ්ට පුද්ගලයන් දෙදෙනෙක් සහභාගී වුණා. ඒ වගේ ඔබට අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු ලබා දෙන්න විශේෂ වැඩපිළිවෙලක් හැම අවස්ථාවකම කමර්ෂල් බැංකුව තියෙනවා. කමර්ෂල් බැංකුව තුළ තිබෙනවා බිස් ක්ලබ් එකක්, SME බිස් ක්ලබ් එකක්. දැනට 5000කට ආසන්න සමාජිකයන් පිරිසක් තියෙනවා. ඒ අපි තෝරාගත් SMEs. එහෙමත් නැත්නම් සුළු හා මධ්‍ය පරිමාණ ව්‍යවසායකින්ගෙන් සැදුම්ලත් ඒ බිස් ක්ලබ් එකට අපි හැම වෙලෙම ඒ තුලින් තෝරාගත් දැනට අපනයන වෙලෙදාමේ නියුතු අපනයනකරුවන් සහ ඉදිරියේදී අපනයන වෙලෙදාමට යොමු වීමට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන අපනයනකරුවන් හඳුනාගෙන ඔවුන්ට අවශ්‍ය දැනුම, ඔවුන්ට අවශ්‍ය ඒ වෙළඳපොළ එහෙම නැත්නම් ගනුදෙනු කරුවන් පිළිබඳ අවශ්‍ය දැනුම ඒ සියල්ලක්ම අපි මේ මූලාශ්‍ර ආයතන අපිට එක්ක සම්බන්ධ වෙලා ඉන්න EDB, NCE ඒ වගේම වාණිජ්‍ය දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව ඒ වගේ ආයතන හරහා ඒ පහසුකම් අපි ලබා දෙනවා. ඊට අමතරව මූල්‍ය පහසුකම් ගැන කල්පනා කරනකොට අපනයනකරුවෙකුට මුලින්ම තියෙන මූල්‍ය අවශ්‍යතාවය තමයි කාරක ප්‍රාග්ධන අවශ්‍යතාවය. ඒ සඳහා විශේෂිත වූ ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රමයක් මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. ඔබගේ කාරක ප්‍රාග්ධන අවශ්‍යතාව සඳහා සුළු හා මධ්‍ය පරිමාණ ව්‍යවසායකින්ට මිලියන 10 දක්වා මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ආසියානු සංවර්ධන බැංකුව හා සමගාමීව අප ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රමයක් හඳුන්වා දීලා තියෙනවා. එහිදී ආපසු ගියීමේ කාලය වසර 3ක්. ඒ අතරිනුත් මාස 6ක ණය ආපසු ගියීමේ සහන කාලයකුත් සමග 11.77ක ණය අනුපාතයකට කාරක ප්‍රාග්ධන අවශ්‍යතාව සඳහා නිෂ්පාදන අපනයන කාර්යයන්හි නියුතු කුඩා හා මධ්‍ය පරිමාණ ව්‍යවසායකින්ට විශේෂිත වූ ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රමයක් තිබෙනවා. ඒ තුලින් ණය ලබා ගැනීමට ඔබ ව්‍යාපාරය තුල ඔබ නිෂ්පාදන ක්‍රියාවලියක නිරත වන ව්‍යාපාරයක් නම් එහි සේවක සංඛ්‍යාව 300කට වඩා අවම මට්ටමක සිටිය යුතුයි. සේවා සපයන ආයතනයක් නම් සේවක සංඛ්‍යාව 200ට වඩා අඩු යුතුයි. ඒ වගේම ඔබගේ වාර්ෂික පිරිවැටුම මිලියන 750ට වඩා අඩු යුතුයි. ඉතින් මම හිතනවා මෙම වැඩමුළුවට සහභාගී වෙන කුඩා හා මධ්‍ය පරිමාණ ව්‍යවසායකින් බොහෝමයක් මා IQ සුදුසුකම් ඇතුළත ඒ සුදුසුකම් සපුරනවා. ඉතින් ඔබට මා ආරාධනය කරනවා ඔබගේ කාරක ප්‍රාග්ධන අවශ්‍යතාව සඳහා ඒ ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රමය සමග අප හා සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න. ඊළඟට තව ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රමයක් තියෙනවා. ඒකත් ආසියානු සංවර්ධන බැංකුව හරහාමයි අපි හඳුන්වා දුන්නේ. ඒ ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රමය යටතේ මිලියන 50 දක්වා ඔබට පුළුවන් ණය ලබා ගන්න. එහිදී කාරක ප්‍රාග්ධන අවශ්‍යතාව සඳහා නෙමේ ඒ ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රමය යටතේ අවුරුදු 5ක පසුගියීමේ කාලයකට තවත් මාස 6ක ඒ අවුරුදු 5 ඇතුළත තවත් ඔබට මාස 6ක පසුගියීමේ සහන කාලයකුත් සමග මිලියන 50 දක්වා ඔබට ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන් කැපිටල් ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට්. එහෙම නැත්නම් ස්ථාවර ප්‍රාග්ධන අවශ්‍යතාව සඳහා මේ කියන්නේ විශේෂයෙන් යන්ත්‍රෝපකරණ සහ යන්ත්‍ර සූත්‍ර මිලදී ගැනීමට. ඒ සඳහා ණය අනුපාතිකය 16.6ක් මේ අවස්ථාවේදී. ඉතින් අපි ආරාධනා කරනවා ඔබගේ කැපිටල් ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට්ස් එහෙම නැත්නම් ස්ථාවර ප්‍රාග්ධන අවශ්‍යතාව සඳහා ඒ ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රමය හරහා අපත් සමග සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න කියලා. ඒ වගේම දැන් SME කිව්වහම කුඩා හා මධ්‍ය පරිමාණ කර්මාන්තකරුවන්ගේ මුල ආරම්භය නැත්නම් MSME මයික්‍රෝ කැටගරි එකකට ලෝන් ස්කීම් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒක අපි හඳුන්වලා දීලා තියෙන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහා බැංකුව හරහා සෞභාග්‍ය ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රමය. ඒ තුලින් මිලියන 25ක් දක්වා ණය ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන් 9%ක් වැනි ණය අනුපාතිකයකට. එහිදී ආපසු ගියීමේ කාලය වසර 5යි. තව අවශ්‍යතාවයක් තියෙනවා සපුරන්න. ඔබගේ ව්‍යාපාරයේ වත්කම් ස්ථාවර වත්කම් ඉඩම් ගොඩනැගිලි හැරුණාම මිලියන 40ට වඩා වැඩි වෙන්න බෑ. මිලියන 40 ඇතුළේ නම් තියෙන්නේ. ඔබට පුළුවන් ඒ සඳහා අයදුම් කරන්න තෝරාගත් කර්මාන්ත කීපයකට තමයි එන ආයෝජනා ක්‍රමයේ විවෘතව පවතින්නේ. ඒ තුලින් ඔබට පුළුවන් ඔබගේ ව්‍යාපාරය ඊළඟ ස්ටේජ් එකට ස්ටෙප් එකට ඉම්ප්‍රූව් කරගන්න ඩෙවලොප් කරගන්න ඒ සඳහා ණය ලබා ගන්න. ඊට අමතරව තව ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රම රාශියක් තියෙනවා කොමර්ෂල් බැංකුව තුල. ඒ ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රම කිසිවක් අයිකුත් ප්‍රතිමූල ණය හා සම්බන්ධ වෙලා ආයතන හරහා කරන නෙමෙයි. කොමර්ෂල් බැංකුව මගින්ම හඳුන්වා දුන් දී තිබෙන දිරිබල ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රමය තියෙනවා. ඒකට බිස් ලෝන් ස්කීම් එක තියෙනවා. අනගි ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රමය තියෙනවා. ඒල විශේෂයෙන්ම කාන්තා ව්‍යවසායකින්ට ඔවුන්ගේ ව්‍යාපාර දියුණු කර ගැනීමට ණය ලබා දෙන්න. නමුත් ඒවෙන් ඒ මම සඳහන් කරේ අනිකුත් ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රම මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ දැනට වෙළඳපොළේ පවතින ණය අනුපාත. එහෙම නැත්නම් පොලි අනුපාත හා සමගාමීව. නමුත් මම මුලින් සඳහන් කරපු ණය යෝජනා ක්‍රම තුනම ඉතාමත් සහනදායී පොලි අනුපාතයක් සමගින් ඔබගේ අවශ්‍යතා සඳහා ලබා දෙන්න අපි සූදානම්. ඉතින් මම අර කිව්වා වගේ කොමර්ෂල් බැංකුව තුළ ඔබ කුමන මට්ටමක ව්‍යවසායකෙක් වුණත් ඔබට විශේෂිත ස්ථානයක් තියෙනවා. ඔබත් සමග වාඩි වෙලා ඔබගේ අවශ්‍යතා කතා කරලා ඔබත් සමග ඔබගේ අවශ්‍යතාවය සපුරා ගන්න ඒ යන ගමනේදී ඔබත් සමග අත්කල් බැඳගෙන නිරන්තරයෙන්ම ඒ ජර්නි එක ඒ ගමන යන්න අපි හැම වෙලෙම සැදී පැහැදී සිටිනවා. ඉතින් නැවත වාරයක් අපි අර මම කියපු කලින් හිටපු තැනට යන්න අපිට තියෙන ලොකුම ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි මේ වෙලාවේ අපේ ඩොලර් සංචිතය එහෙම නැත්නම් ඩොලර් රිසර්ව්ස් අඩු වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම අපේ රුපියලි අගය ගොඩක් පහත මට්ටමකට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒක නැවතත් තිබුණ තත්ත්වයට සහ ඒක තිබුණටත් වඩා හොඳ තත්ත්වයකට ගේන්න අපිට පුළුවන්. අපි කාමෙන් අපි එකතු වෙලා නැගිට්ටොත් අපිට ඒක කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් මේ වගකීම ඔබට තියෙනවා. ඒ වගකීම ඔබට ඒ ඔබගේ අරමුණු කරා යන්න ඒ ඔබට උදව් කරන වගකීම අපිට තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒ වගකීමට අපගේ වගවීම තමයි අපි මේ අද ඔබලට මේ වැඩමුළුව හරහා ඔබලට පෙන්වන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒ සඳහා නැවත වරක් සහභාගී වන ඔබ සැමට ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙමි. නැවත වාරයක් ආරාධනා කර සිටිනවා අපිත් සමග එන්න අත්සල් බැඳ ගන්න අපි කතා කරමු අපි සාකච්ඡා කරමු කොහොමද අපි එකතු වෙලා ආයෙත් මේ රට ගොඩනගන්නේ කියලා. So I was just thinking before I conclude, there was a nice quotation. There was a nice saying by Jack Ma, you all know, the founder, CEO of Alibaba Group. He said, when you are journeying towards success, always to focus not from 0 to 100, but from 0 to 10. Thereafter, from 10 to 20, maybe 20 to 40, maybe 40 to 60. So likewise, it's a journey. So your journey, we have understood. We know where you are now and where you want to be. So in that journey, certainly we'll be there with you. So නැවත වාරයක් ඔබලාගේ ඉදිරි හෙට දිනය සර්ව ප්‍රකාරයෙන්ම සාර්ථක වෙන්න කියලා මම ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරනවා. ඒ ඔබගේ හෙට දවසේ දියුණුව වෙනුවෙන් අපගේ වගවීම අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම අපි ස්ථීර වශයෙන්ම ප්‍රකාශ කර සිටිනවා. So once again, thank you very much. Nandri and ඔබ සැමට ස්තුතියි. ඔබේ ජය අපේ පැතුමයි.
Thank you, Mohan. Excellent. One question, you spoke about ComBank Biz Club. Now, how does an entrepreneur who can get membership to this particular ComBank Biz Club, and what would be really benefit out of this by being a member in this Biz Club?
Yes, Laurie. Thank you very much for asking that question, because the Biz Club is the elite business club, which is at Commercial Bank, and we were the first bank who introduced such a Biz Club. So in this club, we have enrolled selected SMEs from our SME loan book. As you know, our SME loan book does not consist of just figures. It's a combination of success stories. So there's a selection criteria where we identify prospective members, and from our existing loan book, we have identified, and based on the criteria what we use is to become a member of the BIS club. The entrepreneur should have a minimum exposure of 5 million or above that, and we'll be going by the past track records, and with satisfactory past track records for 6 months with regard to loan payment repayments and also the account operation. We'll be enrolling them into 4 categories, namely premium, platinum, gold, and silver. So once they become the members of the BIS club, in all our endeavors, in product promotion and skill development program, maybe in whatever facilities we grant or products we introduce, the first priority will be for BIS club members. And also, we identify the potential exporters from the BIS club membership, and we groom them up to the next level. So that program is also in progress. And also, when it comes to access to markets, access to information, they will be given the priority. So likewise, out of our SME customers, once you become an SME member, you will be getting priority service from the bank when it comes to all endeavors in the bank. So not only the existing business SMEs can become a member of the SME club, but also the new members. So any new member is always welcome, but only thing, once they become a customer of a commercial bank, we'll be observing, monitoring their progress for 6 months, and thereafter we will be enrolling them to the BIS club. So that is the procedure right at the moment. And we are having a lot of new plans for 2023. And also there will be a lot of innovative products, services introduced under digitalization. So there will be new experience for BIS club members, all our SMEs and all other customers in 2023. So all those things are ready. So what is important is for you to join us. So let us journey together.
Sure, thanks. So there is a lot of expectation for SME while coming on board with commercial bank. Thank you, Mohan. So on the interest of time here, we will go on to the Q&A. Joining us for the Q&A would be 2 other panelists. The first would be Mr. Asela Vijayasiriwardana, our DGM Treasury, who oversees the FX and global markets. He counts over 25 years of service with immense experience in treasury operation. Also, it will be with also Mr. Preena, our AGM Corporate Banking, who oversees the trade operation. He counts over 35 years of service. He is the current Senior Vice President of the Association of Professional Bankers. We warmly welcome you both for this forum. And taking on the questions at the Q&A, the first question I would like to pose to Mr. Asela. In these uncertain times, with the scarcity of foreign exchange, with many exporters wondering what would be the impact of the IMF flows, what could be expected on the exchange rate in the near future?
Right. Thank you, Dorian, and good evening, everyone. So, tough question first up from Lorian. Well, there was a lot of expectation, maybe to begin with, in around September, that the country would be able to enter into an IMF agreement fairly soon. And that, of course, helped stabilize the currency at the current level. And also there were some expectations that currency may actually appreciate once the IMF is signed and the country has a plan for debt sustainability. However, it looks like it's going to take longer than what initially expected. So as a result, I don't personally see that the exchange rate appreciating from current levels during this year for sure. It's very likely to stay around these levels, which is currently trading at 360, 350 as per central bank range. I also have to add that given that the country is more or less matching its export volumes with its imports, the exchange rate will remain stable for rest of the year. 2023 is a more uncertain time. There are a lot of things that are still up in there without any decision. So this may get reflected in the exchange rate also, as many of the participants also may have noticed that the exports volume has come down. We hope it is temporarily only for the during this quarter. We will see that it will. We hope that it will improve in the first quarter of 2023, and also the government will be able to quickly enter into some kind of agreement with the IMF. So and then give some stability. If that stability does not come through, then the chances for the exchange rate to depreciate is there. So to summarize, Lorian, I think it will stay fairly stable during 2022. For the rest of the year, we are looking at only about six more weeks. But in 2023, there may be a possibility of a slightly more weak currency if the settlement does not materialize soon enough. That's how we look at the exchange rate at present moment.
Thanks. Now, one more question, Mr. Asada. Now, in terms of interest rates, what would be your presumption?
Okay. So we need to look at how central bank has addressed this current situation. So the focus had been mainly on the controlling of inflation, and one of the tools that they use had been the interest rates. The policy rates has also gone up, and also central bank has restricted money supply to a great extent. So that has kept the interest rates high. And our expectation is that it would continue for some time, at least towards the first half of next year before it starts coming down. Having said that, yesterday there was an interesting observation made by the governor of central bank at a budget forum, where he had said that certain measures will be taken to inject liquidity into the market in the short-term market, so the short-term interest rate should come down as a result. He did not elaborate as to what he will do, so that is still uncertain. But we feel that there will be effort made to make sure that the fundamental problems that is there will be at the forefront of the thinking. We do not expect the policy rates to be changed anytime soon, because right now interest rates are at a certain level which cannot be sustained for a long period of time. The government, this also implies that the government cost of borrowing is also at a very high level. So for all parties concerned, it would be a favorable development if the interest rates are to come down. Again, as I said, we expect for the next 6 to 7 months for it to remain at these levels, high levels, plus minus 1%. But beyond that, we expect some amount of tapering down of the interest rates in the second half of the year. So to this question as well as the previous question, there are so many variables or uncertainties surrounding these. These are very close to linked to how the country performs over the next 3 to 4 years, the external sector performance in terms of exports and imports, as well as how it manages its monetary policy and how it maintains the inflation and the price of goods in the short term. Also, the policy measures that the government is taking, the fiscal plans like the taxes, then other measures to manage the government expenditure as well as income, all these will come into play to determine these two key pricing ingredients, that is the exchange rate and the interest rates. So giving a very clear answer to both these questions is not easy, but our current best possible expectation is what I have stated here. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you, Mr. Asela. Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I would like Mr. Preena to answer this question. With the new regulations coming up in, how could an exporter utilize the export proceeds?
Yes, good evening, Laurie, and the two guest speakers today, Mr. Dimel and Mr. Janadeva, as well as all our participants. Laurie, now, yes, whatever the export proceeds received by the exporter needs to be converted to rupees on or before the 7th of the following month. I think there was a question on this in the chat box also, so I answered that. That rule is still there. However, there's a small exception given that the exporter can retain the proceeds for 1 month, provided that he has a commitment to settle any loan or to meet his current transactions in respect of his exports. ඒ කියන්නේ අපනයනකරුගේ ලැබෙන අපනයන ආදායම order එකකින් ඒක මාසයක් ඇතුළත ඊළඟ මාසේ 7 වෙනිදා වෙනකොට රුපියල් වලට කන්වර්ට් කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒ වුණාට loan commitment එකක් තියෙනවා නම් එහෙම නැත්නම් එයාගේ කාරක අවශ්‍යතාවයක් ප්‍රාග්ධනයට කාරක ප්‍රාග්ධනයට අවශ්‍ය නම් ඒ export එකට අදාළව related to that particular export to exports that he can keep that money for 1 month. However, this rule does not apply for export of services. This is only for goods. Earlier, it was both for goods and services, but the services has been taken out, and only for export of goods, this rule still applies. However, there are 6 exemptions for this, where the exporter can keep his balances without converting. One thing is, if there are any outward remittances for current transactions related to the particular export, including 1 month's commitment, that can be sent using the export proceeds that he received without converting to rupees. Then he can use the export proceeds to withdraw in foreign currency notes, transfer of funds for travel purposes related to export of goods. Then the third one is that any debt servicing expenses, maybe he would have taken any loans in foreign currencies, pre-shipments and all. So those can be serviced using the export proceeds. And those that servicing expenses also is an exemption category where he can use the export proceeds without converting. Then if he has to pay any dividends, labansha, to any non-resident investors, and also payment of salaries to any expat employees, maybe they have some expatriates employed in their businesses. So for those purposes, for those foreign nationals or dual citizens, as permitted under the provisions of the Foreign Exchange Act, these proceeds can be used. Then the 5th one is that if the exporter is planning to invest in Sri Lanka development bonds in foreign currency, up to 10% of the export proceeds can be used for this purpose. So the 6th one is the last one, of course, is if there are any payments to local suppliers permitted under the provisions of the Foreign Exchange Act, then for purchase related to the particular export of goods, for that purpose also, he can use the export proceeds. So any residual after allowing for these expenses has to be converted to rupees before the 7th of the following month, or within a 1 month period, if he informs the bank that he has any commitments to be made within 1 month. Sorry, I think I sufficiently adequately answered your question.
Definitely, it was more than understood. Just clarifying a further thing now, as you had explained, it doesn't apply for a service exporter. So on a service exporter, he's able to build up his foreign currency earnings. So does this give way the provision for him even to open a fixed deposit also and even go for collaterals, Mr. Pena?
Yeah, I think so, Laurie, because the services sector has been, I think, the services sector has been exempted from this, so that he can use that money for that purpose.
Surely. Thank you. So thank you very much, Mr. Prina. I would go on to the next analyst. This question I would like to raise to Mr. Prasad. Mr. Prasad, now with the constraints in foreign currency flows that in the recent past we found, we have exporters finding it hard even to go to the bank and borrow foreign currency loans. So is there any sort of an avenue where the status also or the regulators have given the exporters in seeking foreign currency financing?
Yes, Lauren. Regulators has introduced a particular account. We called it as ECB account, External Commercial Borrowing Account, where all the companies incorporated in Sri Lanka under the Companies Act, they are eligible to open this account. And this account facilitate for them to borrow from overseas lender. And this overseas lender that these funds should come from an account maintained outside Sri Lanka. And even that they can make use of inward investment account also, that through that account also the local companies, registered companies, then can borrow under this ECBA scheme. And another option is if the same lender maintains a offshore account at the offshore banking unit in any local bank, and that account also through that account also local registered company can borrow. Therefore, these three options are available to obtain a loan from a overseas party, and there should be a loan agreement, and this loan agreement should be drawn for a minimum of 3 years. And there are a few documents required to open a ECB account. A certified copy of the loan agreement, including the repayment schedule, profile of the lender and the borrower, a copy of the resolution passed by the board of directors of the company, and this certified by the company secretary, and affidavit also will be obtained from the borrower at the time of opening the ECB account. This loan proceeds, whatever the loan proceeds, could be utilized for their current account transaction of the account holder. This gives the capacity to the local exporter to address his FX requirement in servicing. Sometimes that exporter may be importing raw materials to do the value addition, do the production, and export to other countries. So in case of such instances that where that they need to open LCs and make TT payments for such current transaction, they can make use of funds available under borrowed under this external commercial borrowing account. And this whatever the funds received under ECBA can be kept as savings or term deposits in any designated foreign currency or even in Sri Lankan rupees. In respect of receiving proceeds of each loan, this all the loans granted for each and every loan, we have to open a separate ECB account, and all repayment should be made, even interest earned out of that should be made through the same ECB account. That is to maintain the records of all the affairs, the transactions taken place under the this loan agreement. Those are the actually the ECB is the option, and there are a few formalities the exporters they have to follow in surviving and addressing their FX issues doing business locally.
Lauren, can I add something to that, if I may? Yes. Yes. So thank you. So one of the requirements for ECB borrowing is that the borrower has to provide the central bank at the time of getting permission that it has a mechanism to hedge the foreign exchange risk of that borrowing. Meaning, if you borrow it and when you are to repay, you should not get on your balance sheet a massive exchange rate exposure. Especially in the last few months, when the exchange rate depreciated by 80%, if you had not properly hedged your borrowing, then you would have had a massive exchange loss as a result of that depreciation. So that is something that commercial bank can help you with. There are various ways that we can provide you with the facility to make sure that you manage your exchange rate risk. So if I were to talk about two possibilities, one is to enter into a foreign exchange swap agreement with the bank. So what you do is you enter into a swap transaction where you do not permanently convert your foreign currency borrowing. You use a swap facility to generate Sri Lankan rupees, and you can do that at a fairly reasonable rate, also actually lower than the rupee borrowing rates, and use that. And then at the maturity of that swap, you get your dollars back by paying the rupees back to the bank at a pre-agreed rate. So only the interest component is exposed to the bank, exposed to the exchange rate risk. The second way is some of these ECB customers place this as a deposit with the bank, and the bank facilitate a rupee borrowing against it. So then again, your foreign exchange is not exposed to the exchange rate movement. So even if it depreciates, 25-30%, you don't get the impact of that. So those are a couple of things that you can do to make sure that you do not incur unforeseen loss due to exchange rate movement when you are borrowing in foreign currency, but have to service it in Sri Lankan rupees.
So exporters, this is a great window for you to exploit. If you have constraints in borrowing in Sri Lanka, and if you have a external lender who is willing to give you at a nominal rate, you can exploit this. But as a bank, we do have definitely look at accommodating it, and on there onwards, the extended arrangements that we could provide is there. Okay, so then my last question would go to Mohan. And Mohan, what does really the bank expect when applying for a SME loan from an
Uh,
expert?
yeah, I would explain it like this, Darian, because now, as you all know, when you are having a relationship with a banker, the extent of relationship matters most. Now we are in a situation where we move from the security-based lending to cash flow-based lending. So when it comes to evaluation of credit proposals of SMEs, having the correct information for evaluation is very much important. And to have that information, definitely there should be a very strong relationship with the customer and the bank. I always say that relationship should be something similar to the relationship normally which a doctor has with a patient. Unless the patient explains truthfully the problem what he or she has to the doctor, doctor will not be able to diagnose it. A wrong decision can be very much disastrous. So likewise, unless you be very much open to your bank, and unless if you don't have that truthful discussion with the bank, it will be very much difficult for the bank to evaluate your requirement. So my advice is, what the bank always expects from the customer is to have that truthful negotiation, discussion, and the relationship. With that, the bank can evaluate the feasibility and the viability of your proposal. So with that, certainly the customer can move forward. So relying on the securities or other requirements will be secondary. So the most important, the primary requirement is the good relationship. So that is what we as bankers, we expect. So maybe having your business records properly maintained will be a challenging task right at the beginning. It is something like building up your muscles. You have to make some sacrifices. You have to make some efforts, but after some time, with your exercises and your sacrifices, it will be your strength and the recognition will be there for you. So likewise, I always invite, I encourage all our valued customers, borrowers, SMEs to have that strong relationship with your banker. So that will lead, that would be the main deciding factor when it comes for facilities or assistance required from the bank. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohan. Thank you. Excellent. So I think all good events need to come to an end. So this has been a very interactive discussion in knowing how could we sell to international markets, in helping to earn the necessary foreign exchange for our country. On behalf of the commercial bank team, I wish to convey our sincere appreciation to Mr. Suresh Dimel, Chairman, CEO of EDB, and Mr. Jnana Deva, Deputy Head of Trade Promotion, Department of Commerce, for sacrificing their valuable time and sharing their thoughts, and of course the management team of Commercial Bank, who were among the other panelists today. This session would have not been a success if not for your participation. And finally, I would like to thank the entire team which helped us to organize this event, and the management of Commercial Bank for their direction and guidance in making this webinar a success. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant evening.